British Southern colonies. Let's start with Carolina because it starts out as one colony. It starts out as a proprietary colony. It was granted to royalists, people who remained loyal to the crown during the English Civil War, in thanks for their support. Charles II grants this land, all of North Carolina and South Carolina, to his loyal supporters that helped get his family back on the crown after the English Civil War. It was also granted to stall or prevent any expansion from the Spanish down in Spanish Florida. It's not too far up to Virginia, and the English wanted to claim as much of that land in between English Virginia and Spanish Florida as they can before the Spanish grab it. The original plan, thought up by the wealthy nobles granted this land, was to make money from tenants. In other words, lease the land to people. They tried to persuade colonists in other colonies to move there rather than transport people directly from England. That does not lead to very much success. We don't really have economic success in the Carolinas until there's significant settlement from people from Barbados. English, wealthy, elite people from Barbados, from sugar plantation families, moving to the Carolinas. Basically, if you were the eldest son, you were going to get the family sugar plantation on Barbados. But if you were the second or the third son, you were going to probably get nothing. And they're running out of land on Barbados. It's not a very big island. So a number of English elites immigrate from Barbados to the Carolinas, especially present-day South Carolina, and they bring with them that plantation system of labor. There was slave labor in the Americas. There was black slave labor in the Americas before this, but it is these English elites from Barbados that really bring with them the plantation system and the slavery system, or the massive slave system that comes with that. They're responsible for bringing it to the American mainland. Anthony Ashley Cooper is probably the most prominent of those various proprietors given land in this region, and he attempted to establish a government similar to the English Parliament, with wealthy landowners holding the real power the same way the House of Lords held the real power in Parliament. This is moderately successful until 1719, when his government is basically overthrown, and a number of the proprietorships are purchased back by the crown. And by 1729, North Carolina and South Carolina, for all intents and purposes, is a royal colonies, and they are split into North Carolina and South Carolina in 1729 as well. Moving a little further south, let's take a look at Georgia. Georgia, the idea, the brainchild of James Oglethorpe, an English noble and general who in 1732 had the idea to establish another English colony to serve as a buffer from any Spanish attacks on the emerging and very profitable South Carolina colony. Also, he saw Georgia, this new colony, as a possible destination for English debtors, people who had been thrown in prison for being in debt, for being bankrupt. These weren't violent criminals. These were people who were out of money, were in debt, and were locked up. And English prisons were overcrowded with people in this condition. So Oglethorpe proposes allowing some of these people to go settle in Georgia and make that a profitable colony on its own, but also serve as kind of a human shield between Spanish Florida and South Carolina. However, Georgia is going to see very limited immigration. For one, South Carolina doesn't want competition, so slavery is banned in Georgia early on. Also, another reason for limited immigration, alcohol is banned. There is a perception that these people are criminals and they don't need anything to help them get into trouble here. And finally, People in Georgia have no say in their government. Oglethorpe and a board of trustees made all the decisions for the colony early on. Now, by 1751, all of this has changed, and Georgia looks a lot more like the other English colonies, but still, Georgia is going to lag behind many other colonies in terms of population because there's really less incentive to leave Virginia or less incentive to leave North Carolina and go to Georgia by 1751. Those are the southern colonies in the English 13 colonies.